Yes, what is up, everybody, and welcome to the Early Edge presented by BetMGM. I'm your host, Jimmy Conrad, and before I get to my two illustrious guests, I want to remind everybody to hit like on this video and hit subscribe for SportsLine YouTube's channel. We'd appreciate that support. But now, for the second leg of the Champions League, let's bring in two of your very familiar names in the space, Buckets, also known as John Eimer, and Guru, also known as Martin Green. And guys, we got the Champions League coming up. And what I think I love about the second leg is that we have some narrative. Half the story has been written because we've seen what happened in leg one. So Martin, I'm going to come to you first because you're wearing the Arsenal jersey. This leg two is looking pretty important if you want to get through into the quarterfinals after losing to Porto 1-0 in leg one.
Yeah, that was a pretty brutal defeat, Jimmy. In leg one, I did not enjoy that. But actually, from a handicapping perspective, I think it actually probably makes it a bit easier. The Arsenal game and the Bayern Munich game, seeing as they're losing and they have to really go for it in the second leg. Whereas teams like Man City that are already 2 goals in the clear, I found that a bit more difficult to handicap because they don't have the same level of motivation. So I think we've got some delicately poised games for the second leg, and I'm looking forward to breaking them down and to watching it. And hopefully Arsenal go through.
Yeah, of course. And speaking of Bayern Munich, a nice segue into their number one super fan, Buckets. How are you feeling about Bayern, and what do you think about leg one overall?
I am feeling not great today about Bayern Munich, and I have not been for a couple of weeks now. I was so ready to come onto the show and just talk all the trash in the world to Martin about Arsenal, but I can't say anything because my boys lost to Lazio, and we're looking worse and worse every week. Minus, I guess, we beat Leipzig. That's something, but I'm real nervous about this one, if I'm being honest.
All right, before we look forward, let's take a look back at our picks from before, and mine are going to be included as well. I just feel pretty excited that I have 3 green check marks of hits, just like the rest of the guys. And obviously with some of the teams not performing to their highest abilities, and I'm looking at you, Arsenal and Bayern Munich, that's probably why you're seeing a little bit more red than you're seeing green. But obviously we have time to totally redeem ourselves in leg 2. So let's get into our first game. We're going to go chronologically, boys. We're going to go with Real Sociedad, La Real as they're known, hosting Paris Saint-Germain, PSG, and Kylian Mbappe in particular. In leg one, just to give everybody a recap, leg one, 0-0 at halftime. Real Sociedad were the only team on the field. And then Kylian Mbappe scored on a corner kick a couple minutes after halftime, and then the game started to shift. They got a couple more opportunities. Barcola gets the second one to make it 2-0, and then the game's kind of done and dusted. Real Sociedad have scored, 3 goals in their last 8 games? This doesn't really look that good or promising for them. So, Buckets, I'm coming to you first. Where are you leaning on this and how are you handicapping it?
That 3 goals in 8 game stat is a little bit scary because I do think Real Sociedad will score in this match. I'm going with both teams to score at -125. When you're down 2-0 in aggregate goals, you have to go for it. Screw it. It doesn't matter if you scored 10 times in the last 2 games or 2 times in the last 10 games. You have to produce something on the offense here. I do think Sociedad score, but knowing they have to go for at least 2 goals here means that they're going to open themselves up to the counterattack of PSG, which is absolutely ruthless with the likes of Mbappe and Kolo Muani. I think this game does see a lot of goals. I don't really have a winner in this one, but BTTS at -125 is a very playable line for me.
I like that. Now, Buckets, I want to give some context for, Guru, I want to give you some context and everybody listening and watching as well. There's a quote here from Kylian Mbappe who says, "It's evident that we had trouble getting out of their pressing game in the first half. We should have shown more character to get out of it as we were 8 players against their 6. The return leg will be more open. They will attack more and we will be given even more space. If we get the space over 40 meters, I think we will score over there." That is a direct quote from one of the best players in the world, Kylian Mbappe. Does that influence the way you're looking at this game, Martin?
Yeah, I totally agree with Kylian Mbappe. I'm glad that we're aligned in our thoughts. Yeah, I do think that PSG ultimately deserved the win in that game. They did have 63% of the possession in the end, and while La Real did look very organised defensively, they didn't have a single shot on target in the entire game. And like you said, they've been very goal shy in recent weeks. The season just seems to be falling apart for them a bit. Really poor run of form. And yeah, like Bucket said, they're going to need to take risks in this game. They're going to need to put men forward and try to overturn the 2-goal deficit. And I really do think that will leave them vulnerable to the pace of Kylian Mbappe on the counter-attack. So I'm going PSG, draw no bet. I don't see them losing in San Sebastian. I think they could probably win it. And at the worst, I think they'll draw.
All right. I respect both of your guys' selections. I do want to add that La Real have only won once out of the last 8 games. So to really emphasize what both of you have said, their form is not great. And when you add to the fact that at the time of this recording, they just got knocked out of the Copa del Rey, their cup competition in Spain. They missed a penalty in that game. This was in the semifinals. They had a chance to go to the final. They missed the penalty, and then they end up getting into extra time and then losing at penalties. And the Mallorca books their ticket to go to the Copa del Rey final instead. And it's just like another gut punch to the gut. I can't even speak right now. And I wonder how you work through that emotionally. I know there's a game in between before they get to face off against PSG, but I just don't think it's going to be that easy, especially when they're suffering in the scoring department. So I got PSG actually scoring first at plus 100. And I say that because if PSG comes in, and yes, I think they might absorb a little bit, but could definitely hit them on the counter. It just depends on when La Real decides they want to go for it and commit more numbers going forward. But when I look at what PSG can do, they can kill the game off. They get that first goal, and it's going to be very hard for Sociedad to score 3 goals to get. And I wonder if that's the impetus and the urgency that we'll see from PSG potentially under Luis Enrique, their manager. But that's my bet. We'll see if it hits. I tried RB Leipzig in leg 1, and they should have scored. And that goddamn referee called, I don't know, a crazy call that wasn't even a foul at all against Real Madrid. And yes, I'm still bitter, everybody, and you're just going to have to deal with it. All right, let's move into our next game. We got Bayern Munich. The Buckets, I'm coming to you first. Taking on Lazio. Now, Bayern Munich didn't get a shot on goal at all through the 90 minutes. And the stat I have on that is it's the first time since February 2019 since they've failed to record at least 1 shot on goal in a competitive match, which is crazy. And especially given all the firepower that they have. So they're down 1-0. They're going back to the Allianz Arena in Munich. How is this playing out, Buckets, and where are you going with it?
How this is playing out is I have no freaking idea. If you want to make money on this game, maybe just don't bet on it. Because as a Bayern fan, I'd love to tell you all Bayern Munich's going to score 10 goals. We're going to see Harry Kane with a first-half hat trick. All good things here. But I can't in good conscience tell people to do that because I've been watching every game. And again, even though we beat Leipzig on the weekend, they just haven't looked impressive under Thomas Tuchel. Now, this is do or die. They're playing back at Allianz Arena. This should be the type of game to where we see that classic 3-1, 4-1 beatdown from Bayern Munich. But I am not going to put it past how good defensively this Lazio side can be when they want to be. I expect from the first time that whistle blows till the end of the first half, Lazio are parking the bus, 11 men back in the box at least. And I think this is going to be a very ugly, defensive, tough first 45 minutes for both clubs here. I'm looking at a first half draw at plus 155 because I think it's going to take Bayern Munich a little bit of time to break down this Lazio defense. Maybe it's 0-0 at half and they end up winning 2-0, 3-0. I'd be fine with that. But plus 155 for a first half draw and a game to where I think Lazio won't move forward at all in this game, to me is just too good of a number to ignore.
Yeah, I like that bet a lot. And to further your sentiments, there's something about how comfortable Lazio is in a low block or in a mid block. They're just like, okay, it's no problem. You can have the ball. We're not rattled by it. Whereas you can see some teams do get rattled when other teams have the majority of possession. And so Lazio and Maurizio Sarri, they always seem to have some tricks in their sleeve too when you have Maurizio Sarri managing your team. So I'm kind of curious now, Guru, who are you going with and why in this one?
Yeah, I'm going with Bayern Munich. They were very lackluster in that 1-0 defeat in the first leg. I went for Lazio in that game and they duly delivered, but I do think it'll be a different story in Munich. They're not exactly firing on all cylinders right now, as you both said, but Bayern do still have a really strong home record this season. They were terrific in the group stage, and I can actually see them winning it by 2 clear goals. It's not going to be easy because Sarri is a very good coach, but they have to take risks, and if they're playing against the low block, I do still think they have enough creativity within their ranks to open up this Lazio defence. Yeah, I think it'll be a different story at home, so I'm going for Bayern Munich to win by 2 clear goals at minus 122.
Yeah, it's a good bet as well. I like that value a lot. For me, this is a tough one, and I'm kind of curious what you guys think in particular. I got both teams to score, and I say that even though Lazio It's plus 105, but Lazio dropping off. If they give up that goal at some point, then they're going to have to extend themselves unless they want to go to penalties. Then I'm like, all right, I'm out of it. But when I look at the back line of Bayern, and Buckets, I'll come to you on this.
Yeah.
There's nobody on that back line where I'm like, oh, they got it locked down. This is no problem. Like, everybody is a problem in that back line, especially the center backs. Upamecano getting red cards for fun. De Ligt making a mistake like he does at least once every game. I like Kim Min-jae, but even he at times, it hasn't looked the same as he did with Napoli last season. You have Eric Dyer. The guy couldn't even get a sniff at Spurs this season. Go for it. So I just feel like there's enough there that I think Lazio can maybe sneak in a goal. And so I like that value a lot. Maybe I'm just getting tricked by the value and I really want it to happen and it won't. But what are your thoughts on the Bayern back line?
I don't think it's a bad look at all here. I have been very disappointed with the Bayern back line, and I think Bayern Munich has been too, because we're starting different people every time. We know Davies already is halfway out the door, potentially looking at a move. I think I saw rumors that Kimmich is going to be starting in right back this upcoming match in the Bundesliga. There's no consistency right now, and how Lazio might end up getting their goal is by Bayern Munich giving up a dumb penalty kick, because we keep doing that both domestically and in European competitions. We're giving up PKs for fun right now. At plus odds, that's not a bad look at all, Jimmy.
All right, and Ciro the Hero Immobile, anytime he's on the field, you always have a chance when you got Ciro the Hero leading your front line. So Lazio, you never know, probably on a set piece like you mentioned. All right, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, we're going to talk about Real Madrid, because apparently they're very good at this competition. Don't go anywhere.
The madness doesn't just happen.
Yo, get ready!
And although it's marked on our calendars each year, it's built by moments of mayhem before.
And the crowd goes crazy!
And it begins to bubble long before it bursts. Sure, madness and March may go hand in hand, but it starts right here.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Early Edge presented by BetMGM. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Guru and Buckets, and we are getting into it, second leg, I should say, of the round of 16 in the Champions League. Now, some of these bets, and we're going to go with Real Madrid right now, taking on RB Leipzig, and I'm going to come to you first here, Guru. We talked about it off the show or before we started recording that when we made our bets last time around, we didn't know Jude Bellingham was not going to be available for Real Madrid. But Real Madrid still did what they do, and that's even when they didn't play well, they got a result and won 1-0 off of a fantastic strike by Brahim Diaz, who actually was in place of Jude Bellingham in this particular game. How do you now enter into this one with Madrid, knowing that Bellingham apparently might be back for this weekend, could be back for this game, but maybe not. Maybe they don't risk him. How do you see this one playing out, and where are you leaning?
Yeah, it's really difficult, Jimmy. Like you say, when we gave out our picks, we thought that Bellingham would be in the starting 11, and he's just been banging in goals left, right, and centre this season. So as soon as you took him out of the team, Real Madrid just suddenly looked a lot less dangerous. And I feel like they would have scored at least twice in Leipzig if he had been playing, which would have encouraged Leipzig to come out and attack more. So I think we would have seen a more open game just with him in the team. Again, it's hard to tell with whether he's going to play or not. Anything could happen between now and then. You know, Vinicius could be injured. Anything could happen. So we just have to play it with the situation as we currently understand it. And I think Real Madrid did well to pick up that 1-0 win despite missing Bellingham. I can see a similar situation unfolding at the Bernabeu. Whether Bellingham comes back, that could throw a spanner in the works. But I do think that Leipzig are going to be a bit wary of the pace of Vinicius and Rodrigo on the counter-attack. So I don't think they're going to go too crazy. They're only 1 goal down. I think I could see another low-scoring win for Real Madrid. They have more quality in midfield. And while Leipzig are typically involved in a lot of high-scoring games, their last 5 matches have gone under 4.5 goals. So I do like combining a Real Madrid moneyline win with under 4.5 goals. Plus 120 looks like a good price there.
Yeah, it's really good value there. I like that one a lot. And if I'm an RB Leipzig fan, or if I'm even the coach, Marco Rosa, I'm thinking we did more than enough. We deserved a result in that game. I don't know if a loss was a fair result, all things considered. But Buckets, when you're taking on the masters of this competition, Real Madrid, that's just the way it goes. So where are you leaning in this one?
That's just the way it goes, Ian. And I do not, Jimmy. And Jimmy, I do not learn from my mistakes. Last time I took both teams to score at over 2.5 goals. This time I am once again taking both teams to score at over 2.5 goals. Listen, I watched that first leg. Good on Real Madrid. I know they know what they're doing. Fantastic club, yada, yada, yada. I don't care. I watched Leipzig have 14 shots and 9 on target, with 6 of those shots on target in the second half. This is a team that if they just had a little bit more accuracy or clinical finishes or something in that second half, this game could have seen 3 or 4 goals. And while I do like Martin's tag on under 4.5, I do not know if Real Madrid are going to win this leg. I don't really care who does for my bet here, but as long as we see one team get at least 2 and both teams get on the score sheet, that's where I'm going. I think Leipzig are just going to be a little bit pissed off after that first leg, and I'm going for goals. It's what I always go for, and I'm not going to change here.
Wow, look at that energy and enthusiasm for goals. I really respect it. I found a bet here that I had never actually played before. It's either the tie at halftime or full time. So I'm kind of going, it's plus 100 for that, and it feels pretty safe, right? I'm straddling the fence here. But I could see it being maybe a little tight here in the first half. But then if the game plays out, Real Madrid just need a draw to get into the next round. So their urgency could be a little bit different in the second half if the game's tight. Just get one to get back into it, and they don't need to go try to get that second, assuming RB Leipzig gets a goal. So I like that you can have it at either a tie at halftime or full time at plus 100. I like that value a lot. So that's the way I'm leaning. But as much as I want to see RB Leipzig make it difficult for Real Madrid, this is Real Madrid, and this is Real Madrid's competition. They pay a lot of money to win this trophy. I'm just giving all those Madridistas a hard time. All right, let's get into our next one. The reigning champs, Manchester City, are hosting FC Copenhagen. Now, I went on what do you guys call it, a spanner? I don't even know what the hell I was thinking last time when I said, actually, I do remember. I had the draw in the first half, and it was 1-1. It was 1-1. FC Copenhagen scored on their only shot on goal because Ederson made an error, and it was 1-1, and then Bernardo Silva scored 2 minutes after the 45. Anyway, I'm super bitter about that. That would have been a nice hit, but it didn't work out, and I don't see how it's going to work out for FC Copenhagen at all. Guru, I'm coming to you on this. The defending champs of this competition should be light work. I do want to mention to everybody watching, Man City play Man United in the Manchester Derby the weekend before, so this upcoming weekend, and then they play Liverpool away at Anfield. Is sandwiched in between. So I wonder who Pep Guardiola is going to roll out for this particular game. Does that impact your decisions at all with regard to this, Guru?
Yeah, that massively impacts my decision, Jimmy. That's exactly what I was going to say.
I'm sorry, I took it from you.
Took the words right out of my mouth. 2 huge Premier League games for Manchester City. Like you say, Manchester Derby, and then a huge 6-pointer against Liverpool, which could dictate the outcome of the Premier League title race. So it's hard to imagine them taking the game against Copenhagen too seriously when they already have a 2-goal advantage. That's what really concerns me in this game. They outclassed Copenhagen in the first leg, but you need to give them a 2.5 goal handicap to get value on the second leg. I'm not completely comfortable with that. I think they should win it by at least 2 clear goals, but whether they win it by a 3-goal margin, I'm not sure. I can see them taking a foot off the pedal in the second half if they are ahead by a goal or 2. You know, take off De Bruyne, take off Haaland, wrap them in cotton wool for the big game against Inter the weekend. So I just have to pass this one, I'm afraid. If I see some Erling Haaland props come out close to the time, I'll probably back maybe Haaland to score in the first half or something like that. But for now, I got nothing, I'm afraid.
All right, Martin with the hard pass. I respect it. Sometimes there's not good looks available, and especially in this one, the teams are so pretty one-sided that Man City are dominant in every single area. But again, we don't know who's starting, who Pep's going to roll out, so I can understand why you're passing on that. How about you, Buckets, though? You putting your neck out there? What are you going with?
I'm going to give this a shot. When I bet on Manchester City, here's my strategy. I take a coin and I flip it. If it lands on heads, I bet a Haaland hat trick. I bet them to score 6 goals, KDB to have a hat trick of assist. If it tails, I bet on a 1-0 victory. And it landed on tails, so I'm going with that low-scoring victory here for City. City is already ahead 3-1 in aggregate scoring. As Jimmy mentioned, they've got 2 tough fixtures that this is sandwiched in between. City don't even need to win this game, and they will still advance here. I'm taking under 1.5 goals in the first half at minus 125 because I just don't think they're going to play that hard, and I think they're going to rotate heavily to make sure they're ready for this EPL title race that they're still a part of. Copenhagen, I do not believe will contribute to the score sheet. They got lucky to get that first goal in the first leg, and you're not going to have that same mistake out of Ederson or their backup goalie twice in this one. For me, this is the kind of game where City probably win 2-0 in full time, but not 2 goals in the first half, Jimmy. No way on that.
Yeah, I respect that. I think it's going to be a little bit low scoring too, but the safe bet for me was Man City to win and under 4.5 total goals, minus 155. With that type of value, I'd probably throw it into a parlay to spice it up a little bit and maybe with a different game that's happening or a player scoring any time, maybe Erling Haaland if he gets the nod on that. So I'm kind of with Martin. I want to do more of a wait and see, all things considered. However, to your point, and I thought this was interesting, Buckets, Man City to win and under 3.5 total goals is plus 125. So that gets a little bit more in the positive if that's what you're looking. Because I do think it could be low scoring because there won't be that same sense of urgency. But I guess we're going to have to wait and see. All right. We're at halftime of the show. We're going to take our next break. When we come back, we got games on games on games. And I think my favorite matchup might be Inter Milan heading to Spain to take on Atletico Madrid. We'll get into that and the other 3 ones that are happening as well. Don't go anywhere.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Welcome back to the Early Edge presented by BetMGM. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Buckets and Guru. We're breaking down all things leg 2 of the round of 16 in the Champions League. And as a reminder, please hit like and subscribe to the SportsLine YouTube channel. We really appreciate your support. All right, boys. So I think there needs to be somewhat of an asterisk next to these next 4 games because the ones we just talked about in the first half of the show are all happening within the next 7 days. But these ones are happening in about 10 to 14, which could change things. Like the last time we had our show, we talked about it. Jude Bellingham wasn't involved. We had Napoli with a different coach. They've got a new one now. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that are happening and could change. So I just want everybody, almost as a preface, if you're watching this, take all these little things into consideration as we give you our best lines at this current moment. And the first game we're going to talk about, and I'm coming to you, Guru, because you're wearing the Arsenal shirt, is Arsenal heading home to take on Porto. They lost 1-0 on a very good goal by Galeno in the 94th minute. And I thought Porto was excellent. Maybe one of their best performances of the season. And the Arsenal that we thought we were going to see didn't really show up. What are you expecting in this one, and where are you leaning?
Yeah, I think Porto played an intelligent game. They imposed the mid-block, which Arsenal really struggled to break down. And they kind of used every trick in the book as well to buy free kicks. And they didn't let Arsenal score from corners. They kept falling over every time they were touched at corners. And they just negated some of the things that Arsenal have been best at this season. It was a really good performance from them. It was a poor performance from Arsenal. And it was really naive of Gabriel Martinelli to just hand them the ball in the closing stages of the game so they could score the winner. Yeah, it was a tough game. But I would say that Mikel Arteta has proved himself to be an adaptable coach. We've seen that quite a lot this season. You know, they lost to West Ham and then destroyed them in the reverse fixture. He does learn from his mistakes, and I think he should find a way past that mid-block against Porto in the second leg. It is a bit of a blip. They've been in terrific form right now, won their last 6 games, scored 26 goals in the process, just tearing teams apart. I just had to go for minus 1.5 because a single goal is no good for them, really. That would only take it to extra time. And then they'd be tired. You know, they can't really afford to be playing extra time when they've got this title race to focus on. So they need to win it by 2 clear goals, really. So I'm just giving them a minus 1.5 handicap. I think they should be able to do it. Porto will be very difficult to break down once again. But at home, I think there'll be a much different prospect. And, yeah, I just think they should open them up. So going for Arsenal to win.
I love that. I feel like that's with your head and your heart, Martin. I've got plenty of time for that. Arsenal, for everybody that's watching, currently are in 3rd place, only 2 points off the top behind Liverpool, 1 point behind Manchester City. Their 2 games leading into this one are away at Sheffield United. So on paper, that should be light work, all things considered. And then Brentford at home. And Brentford are pretty plucky. They're going to give you a hard game over 90 minutes. So that would be the one they would play before they host Porto midweek. All right, Buckets, coming to you. What are you saying about Porto? Because are you giving them a chance at all? Because Portuguese teams, as we know, are tough to beat in these types of competitions.
They are very tough to beat. And whatever Martin just said, just take the opposite, and that'll be my bet here. I'm on Porto plus 1.5 goals on the spread here because I'm looking at this Porto mindset that's going to play very similar, I believe, to Lazio, to where they're going to play that mid to low block. They're going to shut things down, and they're going to drag this game on. as long as they can. If this can end 0-0 at halftime, that is a perfect result for Porto going into this matchup. So I'm just expecting this to be a very frustrating match on both ends of the pitch. I don't think that Arsenal won't score. I do think they win this game, but I'm disagreeing with Martin here. I don't think they win by 2. This is a game that could go to penalties for me because Porto, even if they go down 1-0, I still think they just park it and they're playing for that extra time in the PKs here. I just don't have faith in Porto's attack right now, but I also don't have a ton of faith in Arsenal's attack to break through this Porto defense here. So taking Porto on the spread, and hopefully I'm wrong here for Martin's sake, but I just don't have faith in them quite yet.
Wow.
We just won 6-0. We just...
Martin, the
games.
floor is yours. Give us your rebuttal. Go ahead.
No, I appreciate. I can appreciate why you don't think we'll break down the Porto defense, but I would say beat West Ham 6-0, Burnley 5-0, Crystal Palace 26 goals in 5 games. They'll be a different animal at the Emirates, especially if the ref lets the game go. I think they'll 2 clear goals. We'll do a showdown or something.
Buckets, with all due respect, I'm going to lean towards what Martin is saying, and I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb and make the first 30 minutes really exciting. I think Arsenal is going to try to score early, try to regain control of the momentum as soon as they possibly can. I think Arsenal will be leading after 30 minutes. That's plus 120. They've scored 81 goals in all competitions this season. 25 of those 81 goals have been before 30 minutes or earlier. So there's clearly, it's pretty balanced, I would say, all things considered, but there's clearly an emphasis that we're not afraid to go after and try to go get a result right away. And I think they want to get their crowd into it right away. So I'm leaning right into more of the enthusiasm and energy, which might not always be the smartest way to bet, but that's the way I like to do it because it makes it super exciting. You either yelling because you're excited or you're yelling at the TV because those guys are idiots for not doing what you want them to do. And that's why I love a little scratch on these games. All right, let's move into the next one. Barcelona versus Napoli. These are 2 reigning league champions who aren't playing like reigning league champions in their domestic competitions, but still alive in Europe. They're playing against each other. It was a 1-1 draw to give everybody a reminder in this one. Lewandowski, actually the first half, I want all 45 minutes of my life back. That was a bad 45 but Lewandowski scored in the 60th minute. 15 minutes later, Victor Osimhen scored to make it 1-1. And all things considered, probably a pretty fair result. But now going back to Spain, into Barcelona. Buckets, I'm coming to you first. How do you think this one is going to play out?
When I made my notes earlier this week, I had this whole speech ready about how Napoli are overrated. They don't stand a chance. They can't attack. They can't score. And then I watched them beat Sassuolo 6-1 in league play, and I just take a step back and go, all right, well, what are they going to do against Barcelona? I still think they'll struggle against Barcelona, but these are 2 teams that are a shadow of their former selves last season, and neither side right now is playing defense at all. I would like to say I think Barcelona will win, but that's not how I'm going to bet on this one. I'm keeping it simple. I'm keeping it easy. I'm taking both teams to score. We might see a very similar result to that first leg to where it does end 1-1, but I'm expecting, honestly, more goals in this one. And BTTS at playable odds with teams that have attackers like this and poor defenses like this, that's something I have to take.
No, I like that. That's smart. So, Martin, I want to talk to you about the results post this because, as Buckets mentioned, Napoli were down 1-0 to Sassuolo and came back and scored 6 unanswered goals. And they were also down 1-0 to Barcelona and came back and found a way. So there's something that's happening under their new boss, Francesco Calzona, that at least there's some spirit and some fight, which he actually mentioned in his post-game comments against Barcelona. Barcelona actually came back home and slapped Getafe around 4-0. So we're seeing a lot of goals, and maybe they're starting to round into form. Are you feeling the same way, or you think it's going to be kind of tight like leg one?
I'm feeling the same way, Jimmy. Yeah, I think Mazzari was a terrible appointment. I don't know why they bothered hiring him as their manager.
Familiarity.
Yeah, that experiment is over, thankfully. And it finally did play like league champions last night. I backed them at -120 to beat Sassuolo. It was terrific odds, and they absolutely destroyed them. It was Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia back to their brilliant best. And I think they can trouble this Barcelona defence. Don't quite know what's happening with Barcelona's experiment with Andreas Christensen playing in midfield. It all looks a bit... They look like they've got problems with their squad, and they're trying to plug gaps. And I think they could struggle against Napoli if they really get going. They're not playing in Camp Nou at the moment because it's being renovated. They're playing at the Olympic Stadium in Barcelona, and their home results haven't been all that good this season. So I'm going for the exact same bet. Yeah, Barcelona and Napoli, both teams to score, -130.
Wow. Great minds think alike. I appreciate you guys. Okay. So for me, I took a look at the schedule, and I think that's really important. Everybody else should do the same when they're trying to lean one way or the other, trying to handicap it. But check out Barcelona's schedule, everybody. They play away to Athletic. Okay. And then they're home to a revitalized Mallorca squad who just got into the Copa del Rey final. So they'll be excited to at least be difficult to play against. Then they have Napoli at home. And then they're away to Atletico Madrid. That's a hell of a schedule there. And I think I say this out loud because Xavi and his coaching staff have to look at it going, how are we going to manage this month or these 3 weeks of games? And I think that all has to be taken into consideration. But then I look at Napoli's. Napoli is away to Juventus. Then they're home to always tough Torino. And then they're away to Barcelona. So they have to travel to Spain for that one, as we mentioned. And then they're away to Inter Milan, who just, by the way, happened to be running away with Serie A. So that's a hell of a schedule. And I look at it like, which one's harder? I actually don't know. I'm leaning more towards Napoli. However, I do think there's something about this Napoli team that I like. And with Victor Osimhen back and scoring a bunch of goals and being confident, I have the double chance of Napoli to win or draw plus 115. I think they could scrape it out. It could end up 1-1 again, and then Barcelona goes after 90 minutes. That'll hit, and then Barcelona can win an extra time or penalties, and they could continue to go through. But I think over 90 minutes, I like this Napoli team. There's something about them that maybe they're getting a new manager bounce that isn't Walter Mazzarri, and that they can be turned around in a positive way. So that's what I'm looking at. Maybe it'll change. Come back and join us, or come find us on social media to see if we've changed our minds as these games get closer, because some things maybe have changed with lineups or form or whatever it may be. All right, next one. We're going to get into Borussia Dortmund, and they're hosting PSV Eindhoven, who have only lost 2 games all season, PSV, but both of those have been away from home. One was in the Champions League group stages against Arsenal. They lost 4-0, and the other one was in the KNVB Cup, the Dutch Cup, where they lost to Feyenoord 1-0. Outside of that, though, they have been fantastic. So, Martin, I'm coming to you. Borussia Dortmund, PSV, where are you going with this one?
Yeah, I watched that game at the Emirates, and they were absolutely ripped apart by Arsenal. And it was just a strange game because Peter Bosz insists on playing this really high defensive line, and Saka and Martinelli just got in behind them time after time, and Trossard. It was just one-way traffic. I kind of had a feeling that would happen in the first leg against Dortmund, because Dortmund have so many pacey wingers. And I do think Dortmund were unlucky to draw that game. I thought PSV were awarded a pretty soft penalty and they scraped a 1-1 draw. But I thought Dortmund probably did just about enough to win. Perhaps a draw was a fair result on reflection. But now we're going back to the Westfalenstadion. I think there should be a really electric atmosphere inside the ground. The yellow wall's going to be jumping up and down. And I think that Dortmund should win this game. They were very strong in the group stage. I think they beat Newcastle there. They have the pace and quality to exploit that high line. The manager's not going to change his approach. The PSV manager in this game. So I'm going for a home win, plus 110.
So straight up money line, plus 110. I'm loving that for a lot of different reasons. And yes, I probably should have given everybody the score of leg one. It was 1-1. Daniel Malin did score first in that. And it's interesting they gave up a lead. And I agree with you 1,000% that Mats Hummels was not a foul on Malik Tillman. Though PSV did have some opportunities, and Tillman in particular probably could have done better with a couple in the first half. So maybe 1-1 was all things considered the fair result. But I think at home, I agree with you that Dortmund are going to be a bit of a different beast. So I'm going to give my bet first, Buckets, then I'm going to go to you. But my bet is that I found this one. This is an interesting one. I don't know if you guys have ever placed it before. But it's PSV will not lead at any time throughout this game, minus 115. So I'm going to go. I've never done it. I got a couple bets here today that I've never tried before. I'm going to put $10 on that and see how it goes. But there's just something. And when you reference that Arsenal game, when they played Feyenoord away from home, when they play against some stiff competition, I just don't think they're themselves. When they're playing against teams they know they can manhandle away from home in the Eredivisie, they seem to be fine. They won 7-1 this past weekend. But another thing too, Buckets, that I want to talk about Dortmund. They went up 1-0 against PSV and not necessarily relaxed, but didn't really feel like they were going for that second goal. And then this past weekend, they were down 1-0 to Bochum. Then they got it up to 2-1, 2 goals after like 5 minutes. So it was like 2-1, and then they relaxed. And then bang, bang, they give up a couple goals and ended up losing. And so, yeah, it makes me wonder, like, do they have what it takes to like see this out? Can they manage this second leg in a way that can get a result? I'm hopeful, of course, for my bet and for Martin's as well. But where are you going with this one?
It's actually that fear that made me switch my bet here. I was originally
bet?
I switched my bet. I was on Dortmund money line originally, and then I looked back at that match against Hoffenheim, and I looked at that match against PSV, and I was I'm not sure if they'll win. But what I do think will happen is that Dortmund will score at least 2 goals here. I'm on Dortmund over 1.5 team total at -110. I think if you come back to the yellow wall and you're playing against this 12th man, you've got to deal with this Dortmund crowd. Dortmund's the kind of team that they can score 2 goals in 5 minutes against anyone. And we've seen that time and time again. But I'm with you, Jimmy. Something about them is they get comfortable too easily. They could go up 2-0 in this match against PSV, take their foot off the brake, sit back, and then 10 minutes later it's 2-2 all of a sudden, and they're panicking. I do think we see a lot of goals in this game because these are 2 of the best offensive teams that we'll see in Europe. PSV has been running through the Eredivisie right now. Dortmund struggling, but still scoring goals. I'd rather take the team total and give myself that safety net in case this is some 2-2 or 3-3 kind of shootout.
You guys are really good at this. I always like your explanations. Super smart. That's great. Also, I do want to make a correction. Thank you for doing that. I said Bochum. They played this past week in Borussia Dortmund. Bochum actually beat Bayern Munich, Bucket's favorite team, a couple of weeks ago.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah. Hoffenheim was the team that beat Dortmund this time around. All right, let's get into our last game of the round of 16, second leg. It's a good one. Atletico Madrid hosting Inter Milan, who have been absolutely crushing it right now domestically, have 3 straight 4-0 wins in Italy, which is pretty ridiculous. And they seem to be firing on all cylinders. Can they take that momentum into this game in Spain? So I'm going to come to you, Guru, on this one. This is a really awesome matchup for a lot of different reasons. Now, the first game was 1-0. I should mention that. Inter Milan won. Arnautovic came on for Thuram after halftime because Thuram got hurt, which was a big loss for them, but they don't seem to be slowing down in any way. He ends up scoring, making it 1-0. Atletico Madrid, no shots on goal throughout 90 minutes. That's got to be a concern. So I wonder where you're leaning on this because Atleti has been pretty good at home this season.
They have, and Inter Milan have been so impressive. Some of the players that weren't really coating themselves in glory in the Premier League are just on fire for Inter. They seem to have the right balance of steel and flair, and it's working for them despite having, the likes of Darmian and Mkhitaryan and stuff in their team. But they definitely have quality. Lautaro Martinez has been on fire. Barea pulling the strings in midfield. They're a strong team, but I like Atletico in this game. Like you said, they've been tremendous at home this season. 12 wins and 1 draw from 13 home games. 0 defeats. The Metropolitano Stadium is an extremely difficult place to visit. And we know that Simeone is very good at getting wins in the knockout stages of the Champions League. He'll have his players fired up. They'll be well drilled. They'll be kicking lumps out of the opposition. They'll be fighting for every ball. They've got a lot of quality in attack. I really can't see them losing in this game. Whether they'll get through on aggregate or not, I'm not sure. I think because a draw would suit Inter. It could finish all square, but of the 2, I'm definitely leaning towards Atletico for this second leg. So draw no bet, -110.
I love it. I love it. This is a great game. This is 2 managers, too, that I have a ton of respect for in Simone Inzaghi with Inter Milan and Diego Simeone with Atleti. I feel like there's a bit of a chess match. Obviously, you need to execute when you get your moments, and Atleti didn't do a good job of that. And I actually thought that Inter spurned some chances. Lautaro had a clear chance that he hit wide. He scuffed it, and Arnautovic, when he came in, had a couple looks, and he only scored 1 of those. But is that enough to warrant consideration for them to go through to the next round? They were finalists last year. I don't know. Actually, I was at the final, and they looked great against City, but couldn't get the result. Could we see something similar here? Buckets, where are you going on this?
Out of all 8 Champions League games we have coming up, this is the one I am the most scared of. I think this could be the most competitive of all 8, but this for me is the hardest one to find value in the betting space. Atletico Madrid at home, as Jimmy has mentioned, is tremendous, and we've seen them struggle on the road all season. As we're filming this, I'm watching them lose to Athletic Club 2-0 in the Copa del Rey. So Atleti just on the road just is not the same team than when they're playing at home. I do think they'll give a much harder matchup to Inter here in the second leg now that they are playing at home, but I'm not confident, honestly, in either side winning this matchup. I'm taking a bit of a long shot here. I'm playing the draw at +255. I think if you want to go to the next level, correct score 1-1 here is +800. I do believe that Atletico Madrid will score at home, but I just don't think they have enough to maybe win this game outright, and I'm leaning towards that draw rather than picking a side here.
I love that. I love the risk, too. I could see a draw, and I'm in some ways preparing for it. I'm doing a bet I haven't done in a really long time. I've got Atletico and Inter 2 to 3 total goals. I actually initially thought I could see it 1-1 for a long time, and then somebody going after it afterwards, and maybe going over 2.5. But I'm just going. I could see a 1-1 play out. So I wanted to protect myself there. It's plus 100 even money for a total 2 or 3 goals. So that covers you on the 2-1, covers you on the 1-1. So I like that. Super safe. I've been straddling it today, but I do like when we throw out some flyers. There's a little more risk. 1-1 correct score plus 800 would be a lot of fun as well, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something similar. Boys, this has been awesome. Let's recap all of our bets through these 8 games for the second leg of the round of 16 in the Champions League. And if I had to ask you guys which one was your favorite bets, and Buckets, I'm going to come to you first because I remember going to Guru first last time. Buckets, what's your favorite bet of these 8 that you're like, I feel the best about this one?
I'm going to show my Bundesliga bias here. I'm going with that Dortmund team total. I just believe that even if they don't win, Dortmund are going to give PSV absolute hell in the attack. They'll get at least 2 in this one.
All right. I respect it. Guru, where are you leaning?
I'm actually going the same way, I think. Looking at all those picks, I like Dortmund. I like Dortmund to beat PSV. Like I said, I think they were unlucky not to win the first leg away and at home with the crowd behind them. Plus 110 just looks like a great price.
All right. I like my Real Madrid, RB Leipzig tie at half or a tie at full time. I don't know why I'm feeling that one. That's even money. Any of mine, though, are kind of fun. I hadn't really thought about it too much. I don't even know why I asked you guys that question if I wasn't going to answer it myself because I put myself under that type of pressure. But that is it. We are going to end the show. Early Edge, presented by BetMGM, is over. It is done. So make sure you hit like and subscribe, of course. We appreciate all of your support. And on behalf of Martin and John and everybody else that's here on camera, that's just us 3. We want to thank everybody behind the scenes for making us look better and smarter than we deserve to be. We appreciate all your love and support, and we'll see you next time. Enjoy the games. Later.